Dark skin was the default setting for every human who ever lived. Then, within about 10,000 years, whole populations turned pale. That number should stop you. 10,000 years is nothing on an evolutionary calendar, since most physical traits take hundreds of thousands of years to shift. Skin color did it in a fraction of that time, and the reason has almost nothing to do with what you probably assume. No sunscreen, no vitamin pills, no modern medicine, just biology, working overtime under real pressure. Picture East Africa, somewhere around 70,000 years ago. The sun sits directly overhead most days, and ultraviolet radiation hits the ground at full strength all year long. Every human alive at this point has deep brown skin, loaded with melanin. That melanin isn't cosmetic. It actively blocks UV rays from breaking down folate in the bloodstream. Folate matters enormously for healthy pregnancies and normal cell division, and low folate levels near the equator lead directly to birth defects, so dark skin wasn't a preference back then. It was a requirement for survival without exception. Then groups of humans started moving out of Africa north into Europe, east into Asia, away from the strongest sunlight on the planet. The further people traveled from the equator, the weaker the sun became. Winters grew longer. Daylight grew thinner. And that single shift changed the sunlight pressure on human skin completely. Here's the fact that surprises almost everyone who hears it. Genetic studies show that light skin variants common in modern Europeans spread mainly within the last 8 to 12,000 years. Some of the key mutations linked to pale skin only became widespread within the last few thousand years. Closer to the age of early farming towns than to the age of mammoths. That means plenty of Bronze Age Europeans still carried dark skin alongside blue eyes, according to ancient DNA samples we covered from burial sites across Spain and the Baltic region. Scientists were genuinely stunned when they first confirmed this. It broke a long-standing assumption that pale skin arrived the moment humans reached colder climates, rather than thousands of years later. One of the clearest examples came from a 9,000-year-old skeleton found in England, known today as Cheddar Man. Analysis of his DNA revealed dark skin, dark hair, and blue eyes, all at once, sitting in a country now associated with pale skin more than almost anywhere else on the planet. Scientists pinned down this timeline using ancient DNA. Researchers extract genetic materials straight from old skeletons, then scan that DNA for the exact mutations tied to pigment. They date the bones using radiocarbon methods and line those dates up against the mutations. A clear timeline emerges, one you can actually trust. That's how researchers figured out not just that skin lightened, but exactly how fast it happened. A handful of specific genes drive most of this story. SLC24A5 lightens skin significantly in European populations, and researchers consider it one of the strongest single genetic effects ever found in humans. SLC45A2 does similar work, in a slightly different way. Key LG shapes both hair and skin pigment together. Interestingly, East Asian populations lightened through a largely separate set of mutations, centered on a gene called OKE2. Two different regions solve the same problem using two different genetic solutions. That's convergent evolution happening twice in real time. Each of these genes nudges melanin production down slightly, and none of them work alone. Small genetic tweaks stacked across thousands of years added up to a visible, measurable difference. Here's what actually caused the shift. Because number one is vitamin D. Human skin produces vitamin D when sunlight hits it directly, and dark skin filters out more UV rays before that reaction can happen. Near the equator, that filtering is exactly what you want, since there's UV to spare. But move to northern Europe, where winter sunlight stays weak and scarce for months at a stretch, and heavy filtering becomes a serious problem. Less UV getting through means less vitamin D produced, and vitamin D deficiency isn't a minor issue. It causes rickets, weakened bones, and serious complications during pregnancy. Over dozens of generations, individuals with lighter skin let in slightly more UV, and slightly more UV meant slightly more vitamin D. That small edge added up over time. Evolution rarely needs a massive advantage to spread a trait. A tiny one repeated across enough generations is more than enough. Cause number two built directly on that first pressure. Diet changed the timeline dramatically. Early humans across Africa ate diets naturally rich in vitamin D, thanks to fish, organ meat, and animal fat. Once populations settled into farming villages, that pattern broke down fast, since grain-based diets, heavy in wheat and barley, deliver almost no vitamin D at all. So farming communities became far more dependent on sunlight to fill that nutritional gap. And this extra pressure sped up the spread of lighter skin considerably. It also explains a genuine exception to the pattern. Groups like the Inuit stayed dark-skinned even at extreme northern latitudes because their traditional diet, built around fatty fish and marine mammals, supplied vitamin D directly through food instead of sunlight. Skin color was never a simple result of geography alone. Geography combined with diet to produce the outcome. Not every population needed to change at all. Groups that stayed near the equator, across sub-Saharan Africa, South Asia, and Aboriginal Australia, kept high melanin levels the entire time because the same folate protection remained just as essential under that same strong sun. Skin color didn't shift uniformly across humanity. It shifted only where the underlying pressure shifted too, which is exactly what evolution should do. This detail deserves a moment on its own since most people miss it completely. Skin color evolved as a constant trade-off between two competing risks. Too much UV exposure destroys folate and threatens pregnancies. Too little UV exposure blocks vitamin D production and weakens bones. Every human population landed somewhere along that spectrum, shaped by local sunlight and local food. That's why skin tone roughly follows distance from the equator, but never lines up perfectly, since location shaped the outcome and diet shaped it just as strongly. Now compare all of that to your life right now. You almost certainly don't rely on careful sun exposure for vitamin D anymore. You get it from fortified milk, a daily supplement, or a multivitamin from the pharmacy, and doctors today still track vitamin D deficiency in millions of people worldwide, especially in northern cities with long, dark winters. Modern medicine solves most of the deficiency problem directly, and sunscreen blocks UV damage regardless of how much melanin you carry. A flight can move you across 10 latitude lines in a single afternoon. Your ancestors needed thousands of years and dozens of generations to adjust to a new environment. You can adjust in an afternoon using a pill and a boarding pass. Biology used to be the only survival tool available. Technology now handles most of that work instead, and your skin no longer has to fight this particular battle alone. Skin cancer rates today run far higher among fair-skinned populations living under strong sun, like fair-skinned communities in Australia, which reflects the same UV vulnerability, just in the opposite direction. Your ancestors adapted skin tone to match their environment over thousands of years. Modern travel puts you in a completely different environment within hours, long before your biology could ever catch up on its own. Here's a myth worth correcting directly, because it trips up a lot of people. Many assume light skin was the original human skin tone, and darker skin developed later through some kind of adaptation. That assumption runs completely backwards. Every piece of genetic and fossil evidence points the same direction, without exception. Dark skin is ancestral. It's the baseline setting our entire species started with. Light skin is the newer variant, the recent genetic edit, the exception rather than the rule. Humanity spent the overwhelming majority of its existence with dark skin under intense African sun, and pale skin represents a small, recent portion of that much longer timeline. A second myth deserves correction too. Many people assume this change unfolded slowly, gradually, and invisibly across hundreds of thousands of years. Ancient DNA research proved that assumption wrong. Certain lightning mutations spread surprisingly fast once conditions favored them, and several genes linked to pale skin only became common within the last several thousand years. That places the shift roughly around the same era as the invention of writing in the earliest cities. Skin color changed on a historical timescale, not a slow geological one, and that single detail changes how most people understand human evolution. One more detail worth knowing: evolution didn't need brand new mutations to make this happen. Some of these gene variants already existed at low levels in the population, staying rare for generations before conditions changed. Evolution simply favored variants that were already there. Under the right pressure, existing variation can spread fast with no fresh mutation required. Just the right conditions applied consistently, generation after generation. Red hair follows a similar pattern on a smaller scale. A single gene called MC1R produces both pale skin and red hair together in certain populations. That gene became unusually common in specific regions, including parts of Scotland and Ireland. The underlying pressure was the same, even though the visible result looked different. Pigmentation genetics rarely produces just one outcome on its own. It tends to reshape several traits at once through a single connected genetic pathway. Let's put every piece of this together clearly. Dark skin protected folate levels near the equator, where UV radiation ran strong. Migration out of Africa placed groups of humans into weaker sunlight environments. Weaker sunlight created a brand new problem: insufficient vitamin D production. Lighter skin solved that specific problem by allowing more UV to pass through. Farming diets accelerated the timeline further once grain replaced fish and meat. Within roughly 10,000 years, several separate populations turned pale as a direct, measurable result, through different genes, at different speeds, on different continents. That pace counts as remarkably fast by evolutionary standards. It demonstrates how quickly the human body can respond when survival genuinely depends on it. This whole story reveals something larger about human evolution as a process. People often assume major biological changes require enormous stretches of time to unfold. Skin color proves that assumption false, in a very specific and well-documented way. Under the right pressure, evolution moves fast, sometimes shockingly fast. Humans were never fixed or finished products. We stayed adaptable, responsive, and constantly adjusting to wherever we happened to land, generation after generation, continent after continent. Your skin carries physical evidence of that adjustment right now, regardless of your particular shade. Every skin tone alive today reflects a specific survival history. Yours reflects one too, whether you thought about it or not. It's a direct record of where your ancestors settled, what food sustained them, and how much sunlight hit their skin across thousands of years. None of it happened randomly or by accident. All of it came down to survival, encoded permanently in your own DNA, long before anyone understood why. So here's the question worth sitting with for a second. If you'd been dropped into Northern Europe 12,000 years ago, dark-skinned, facing months of weak winter sunlight, would your body have adapted fast enough to survive there? Drop your answer in the comments below, and if you want the next prehistoric mystery broken down this clearly, subscribe. Because human evolution has plenty more surprises waiting.